of turn 60 on the left hand side.
I think does it damage the wheel cover on the front left from it? It's towards the end of the lap, and he's managed to see out the lap and end up in the top 6. So it's a great effort from him, and he's right. That was a pretty hard hit.
Just shows the angle of any impacts can make the difference between telling the story or being brought back on the back of the recovery vehicle. And again, for those who've been watching all weekend, the actual hit from Yuki was just the wrong angle. It wasn't actually a big hit in free practice, and then he did extensive damage, and then Albon has just used up one of his 9 lives around this place.
Yeah, the drivers have to take so many risks. One driver who did not progress into Q2 was Esteban Ocon, and Alex Brundle is having a look at his performance.
Coming off a weekend where Haas took 2 points finishes with both cars, and indeed with his teammate through into the second part of qualifying in P11. It wasn't a great first sector for Esteban Ocon, which is where the time was, as you correctly highlight, JP. It looks like it's down in turn 1 and 2. The team noted it, Laura Muller over the radio saying, yeah, we saw the error down in turn 1, just gets himself wide in that first apex, and then of course has to hook it back around the second apex, and then of course you're late to throttle. That enough, guys, to put you, if you're in a midfield car, easily out in the first part of qualifying. The rest of the lap looking relatively decent for Ocon, but he's dropped so much time in those first couple of corners that no opportunity to make his way through to the next part
Max
of qualifying.
Verstappen with the fastest lap. Red Bull.
Thank you, Alex. Having a look at the moment that cost Esteban Ocon. This is
Lando
Pierre
second,
Gasly
Piastri
the
third.
last turn, he got very, very close. I think he scraped down the wall, didn't he, at the 27th turn? Let's find out. Wait for it. Ooh,
Perfection. Perfection.
Gasly's had a good feel throughout the practice sessions, and he is the sole remaining Alpine. Lance Stroll still in the car, so after what happened last week when it took an hour to delete a lap time out there, Lance Stroll wisely, the driver in 16th, being kept in his car by Aston Martin in case we get any late laps deleted, and he can take part in Q2.
We haven't had many laps deleted at all for track limits. I don't think there's too many opportunities for it, but obviously Aston Martin doing the right thing, and they don't want their driver to get out and be in the media pen when actually they're told that you're back in. So Lance can sit in the toasty cockpit.
We're out by 3 thousandths, but it's very, very tight, and we're checking other track limits, so we'll just stay in the car, stay ready.
Gary Gannon on the radio. Lance Stroll's gone through a couple of driver engineers, but that seems to be, in the first couple of races of the season, working quite nicely. Lance Stroll is the only point scorer this year for Aston Martin.
And it was Aston Martin that highlighted Nico Hulkenberg's abuse of track limits in Bahrain, so they're going to be sifting through everyone to make sure that they are definitely not entitled to a place in Q2, but as yet we have seen no radio message. And Lance, it actually ended up being nearly a 10th that he was out in 16th place.
This digital world, the high-tech nature of Formula One, it takes 20 individuals with their hand out to control these eager Grand Prix drivers. Their chief mechanic in each of the cars is waiting for the call from the race engineer before releasing the drivers. But it's quite a sort of surreal, the power of the hand.
There's kind of also, there's spotters now in all the teams for the stewards, aren't there? We heard on the radio, Max radio, before the start in Bahrain that Lando was out of his grid spot. But the drivers are all looking at each other, and we hear it from time to time in the pit lane if there's an incident or anything on track that's untoward. Obviously traffic being the obvious one, where the drivers will radio in and do a sort of hand in the air to the race stewards. But the teams also are trying to find something on anyone. They're trying to dish the dirt on their rivals, but to no avail for Aston Martin. Their hands have come down in the garage, and we're about to get going for Q2.
Yeah, looks like a few scrub tyres there, as they'll be just gauging the track evolution. They still, as we've discussed many times, they have some tools at their disposal to try and bring the car into balance. Maybe a quick sighter check and then in for a new set of boots.
And the used softs are very usable around here. The degradation is not like it was in Bahrain, so it's not a complete write-off for anyone going out on a scrub set like Lewis Hamilton is there on the Ferrari. Kimi Antonelli on a scrub set as well, heading out in the Mercedes.
Mark, that was close. That was committed. Mark, that was close. Well, he trusted his mechanic, but you've got to kind of keep your eyes about you as well, haven't you? But yeah, Julian, just your saying there about the tyres and different track surface here, different day in history, even if it was the same track surface. But in sort of nail file terms, if Bahrain was the coarse side of your nail file, this surface is the smoother side for the finer details when you're preparing your fingernails.
And 4 drivers managed to get through Q1 with just one set of tyres. Who were they? The top 4 in the championship. Nailed it on the first run once again. The 2 McLarens, George Russell and Max Verstappen, their teammates both used 2 sets. The Ferraris both used 2 sets. Yuki Tsunoda was 2 sets. So it's the top 4 that are establishing themselves again at the start of this qualifying, and that will help them again in Q3.
Visually spectacular stuff for Alex Albon. He is climbing all over the curbs. It's not quite as clean as he might want it, but he's had a couple of slipstreams. He's got his teammate leaping out of the way of him at the final corner. Worth saying, incident involving Liam Lawson has been noted for an unsafe release. You do not want to get pinged for a penalty when it's operational stuff in the pit lane, just to leave the pit lane for your qualifying lap in Q2. 28.5 for Alex Albon, and everyone will try and respond to that lap time, including the full man in the championship, Oscar Piastri, our only multiple winner of the year. We're in Q2 with 11 minutes to go. And watch this for the direction change of a modern Formula One car. You see how much you have to use the curbs, but wide too much at turn 9 that's coming up in the moment, clearing the Williams of Alex Albon, who's just laid down the lap time, threading the needle at high speed, striking the curb at turn 10, and then it's the hairpin at 30.
Ben, really appreciate the
overhead as if he was a little bit wider than he would like in that middle sector. It may be just the deceptive nature of that. Let's see how the sector unfolds.
I think he was. I don't think it was the cleanest, even though it's the fastest in Q2. It's a couple of tenths away from the fastest that was managed in Q1. He was quite wide at 5, and then the car looked lively as well as he turned into the right-hander at 9.
Such a brilliant corner to see where the car is, and great direction change through 22 and 23 for Oscar Piastri in the car that's leading the Constructors' Championship, and their drivers are 1 and 2. Piastri is 3 points back behind Lando Norris. He clears his teammate. We hope to by the end of the Grand Prix tomorrow. Here's the lap time he's looking for to book his place in Q3, the top 10 shootout, and it is a lap time good enough for a 27.9.
So, Piastri
27.6.
27.69. But Verstappen is quicker, and he's 0.3 quicker in the first sector. So it wasn't the cleanest first part of the lap from Oscar. The second part was very good, and the scramble over the line was good as well through the final corner and out, as George Russell does the same.
So Antonelli has only gone
Looks
to
like
third
Max
behind
gonna get a
Carlos
faster
Sainz,
time
so the
right
Williams
here.
form continues. Russell gets within a couple of tenths of a second, and Max Verstappen's time will be interesting. Can he maintain the speed all the way to the end?
Yep.
He can, and it shows you that Piastri left time on the table in that first sector. Can Charles Leclerc, the driver with the second most pole positions in Ferrari history, behind only the great Michael Schumacher, find more form as we get towards the business end of qualifying? This is only Q2. We will reset the times before we get to Q3. But let's see where this opening effort goes. For the man from Monaco, he comes over the line, he goes into 4th. It's Red Bull, then McLaren, then Mercedes, then Ferrari.
Definitely felt like he had to sort of roll the car into that final corner, and actually almost sounded like he was almost on a long run lap. Not saying I'd be able to get close, but what I mean is, I wonder if that's telling us that they just started to run out of tyres in that final sector, Julian.
It's a very difficult final corner. You've got to approach with speed. It's a very fast approach. As Norris just about manages to get ahead of Verstappen. That's new tyres apiece for the McLaren and the Red Bull. The final corner is a long apex corner. You attack the entry so aggressively, braking and steering at the end. But then you have this wait phase in the middle, where it's very difficult to sort of V-shape the corner, to brake all the way to throttle. You roll off it, and it's quite bumpy at the apex as well. So I've seen drivers go slightly wide of the apex throughout the practices, trying to avoid those bumps and keep a stable platform. It can often mean you're running out of road on the exit, and you want to kind of go for a slightly later apex to clean off the exit and get it straighter, so you're not doing a Pierre Gasly and sweeping the barriers on the outside.
Yeah, there was one of those little errors there that lift a bit more than you maybe would have liked. So definitely more time to come from Oscar. And you even on even with the onboards there, it's very difficult not to feel on the edge of the adhesion that these drivers must be experiencing. You know, Grand Prix cars love speed. The downforce is the square of the speed. But somehow you always want more, even if you're 160, 170 miles an hour.
We got the top 10. We got top 10.
Slips him across the line.
Yeah, McLaren coordinating it really nicely there, with Piastri finishing his lap.
Norris,
Max,
Max,
his.
Piastri,
Norris
Russell,
took his
Charles,
McLaren
Tsunoda, Hamilton, Sainz, Antonelli, Gasly.
And he was 400ths quicker than Max Verstappen, who's back in business. After a bit of a bruising time in Bahrain, he is fighting at the front once again. And it's the top 4 in our classification, a scrambled version of the top 4 in the World Championship. The bottom 5 did not set their first runs on new tyres. Alex Albon has gone out early on a new set of Red Bull soft tyres.
It's almost like the bottom 5 are what you would expect in terms of the car they have and the sort of form we've seen this year. They've got to knock out a big name to make it through.
Just double check the front of the flag. I hit it quite hard on the exit of 4 into 5.
Understood. We'll have a look.
He did hop over it a little bit like Piastri did there on the exit of 4, sweeping in too much speed on that left-hander, and should be okay. He managed to do the rest of the lap extremely quickly, did Max, and he's splitting the two McLarens at the moment, but you're always quite right to just radio it in case the team can see some scuff marks and tidy it up.
Going into Q3.
The bottom 5, I kind of agree on form. That's where they're at. I think Albon has a good chance in the Williams that's looking quick. That's why he's gone early, and he's got a nice clear track to not worry about everyone else and all the traffic. He has his own destiny in his hands right now, Albon, and he's gone early for that new tyre. Apart from that, only the top 3 actually there were on a new tyre on that first run, so that's why there's a bit of a gap between them and Russell, who did that on a used again.
Looking at the bottom 5, Alex Albon has made his way into the third part of qualifying this year, as has Oliver Behrman, as has Hadjar. Alonso and Lawson have not done so, and there's no time on the board for Liam Lawson, who had it deleted for going too wide at turn 10.
It's a good first sector for Albon. We're not watching the only car on track at the moment, but he's gone through the first sector pretty well, and here he is coming through the middle sector right now, sweeping up towards turn 22, having gone through the quick change of direction at 16.
Yeah, he has been very strong in single lap performance, confidence in that car, experience with the team. Again, not a bad middle sector. So this is building into a lap that will take him through.
This is going to launch him right up the order if he can just get this final corner together.
That's the question for him. Alex Albon has never made Q3 around this racetrack. His highest starting position, 12th. This has been a superb lap though. He went early, had the track to himself, and he goes up to 6th position and will force all of those now below him. Tsunoda, Hamilton, Sainz, Antonelli, and now in the drop zone, Gasly, Behrman, Hadjar, Alonso, and Lawson to respond.
He did leave a little bit on the table in the final sector. That wasn't the cleanest final sector. It's 2 corners really. Turn 22, a quick flash to the left and a bounce over the curve at the apex of what is technically turn 23, the right-hander. And then that final difficult to get right left-hander at the end of the lap, and Albon didn't put that together perfectly. The rest of the lap was good, and it's a benchmark for the midfielders.
Was looking for a 28.1, in the end got a 28.4. So does that open the door for Gasly, Behrman, Hadjar, Alonso or Lawson. Yuki Tsunoda trying to do what he did last week in Bahrain and book his place in the top 10 shootout. If he does so, be the first time around this racetrack that he's managed to get through there, trying to score a point for the first time as well in Formula One in Jeddah. Kevin Magnussen denied him a couple of years ago and trying to book his place again in Q3 for Red Bull.
Must have been leaving on a scrub set of tyres, it looks like, so saving that extra set for probably a new set into the Grand Prix at this stage, only running 2 sets through Q1 and Q2, being very economical.
And now we go nose cam with the Mercedes. Kimi Antonelli has been going first when it's come to the pair of them. That is George Russell, who is the lead car on track at the moment. Antonelli finds himself heading into the first 2 turns of the racetrack.
Yeah, what a great angle of the front flap displacement. That upper element, much more flexible visibly than some of the competitors. There is a deflection test, but they're obviously relying on the first 2 elements to control that as he feeds his way through at incredibly high speed, as you see there, 160 miles an hour at that final sequence of corners there. Just looking at his sectors, small improvement in the first, but a couple tenths away from what the best was there.
A couple of tenths away from his teammate as well. Looked like there was a split correction at turn 10. Just had a wriggle coming through the throttle at the real high speed part of that first sector. Sainz hasn't done a fantastic first sector either. He's down in 9th, and we know the Williams is good. Albon's in 6th and back in the pits. So Sainz with plenty of work to do.
Antonelli missed out on points for the first time in his Formula One career last week in Bahrain. He was in 11th, 4 tenths of a second away across the line on the last lap. And he scored in his previous 3 races, including a very strong 4th on debut in mixed conditions in Australia. Now in Saudi Arabia, he's looking to get through into the 3rd and final part of qualifying, and that lap takes him up to 5th position. Sainz will be one to watch though. He's had a great weekend so far when it comes to 1 lap pace.
He's done a very tidy middle sector, so he's really got to put this together to get himself out of that 10th place on the bubble, because there are drivers quick behind.
Last minute
Yeah,
for
he's moved
Q2,
up
last
to
minute.
3rd. Carlos Sainz trying to fight through into the 3rd part of qualifying.
Damn.
Good lap to move up
P6,
to
Carlos
P6.
Which puts Hamilton on the bubble now as well. Tsunoda not out of range in 9th and 10th, and Gasly's got a quick Alpine, and Hadjar and Lawson are trying to improve as well.
Behrman cannot find his way through with 30 seconds to go. What can the Racing Bulls do? Lawson trying to improve to the top 10 in qualifying for the first time this year. Something that Isaac Hadjar knows well. He's been as high as 7th on the grid so far this year. Can he fight through? No, he can't. He's in 11th position, and it's over to Liam Lawson. The New Zealander comes across the line, and he gives himself a chance. He's
He knocked
P10.
out Hamilton.
So Hamilton, yeah, sorry,
He's
Julian.
still
after you.
on a lap.
Oh no, I was
not
going to
lap.
say he's in the drop zone. 5 seconds to go, but he is on a fast lap,
Yeah,
DC.
Yeah, but he dropped it. Well, he hasn't done his best in the middle sector.
Liam Lawson has put the pressure on. The 7-time world champion responds. And it wasn't the cleanest lap, but it was good enough to get through to 8th position at the moment. Alex Albon is down to the drop zone on the brink of the drop zone in 10th position as Gasly gets to 8th. It's
Q2
Tsunoda
over,
down
Q2 is
to 11th.
over.
He's on a push lap, so is Fernando Alonso. 2-time champion and podium finisher around this racetrack comes over the line, and Alonso can only get to 13th. So can Yuki Tsunoda dig himself out of trouble? The driver who was crashing yesterday is 7th today to eliminate
Yuki.
Alex Albon, and Tsunoda finds a lap under pressure at the end. It's 2 Red Bulls through into Q3 once again. It's Gasly there for Alpine, Sainz there for Williams. Hamilton made it through. Look at the margin, 7 thousandths of a second between the Ferrari and the Williams, but it's Albon, Lawson, Alonso, Hadjar and Behrman. The 5 cars eliminated in Q2.
So as I was saying going into that session, the bottom
Se me hace que con
5
esto sí no hay pedo.
wouldn't be
They
unexpected.
they haven't.
You wouldn't be surprised, I should
It's
say,
not
if
showing
they
like
didn't make it through.
the.
Other
It's
with
just
the
like the
exception of
track.
Albon, who has been on top of it so far this year, but it seems that Sainz has found a bit of form.
Yeah, ever since he rolled into Bahrain, Sainz has been talking about the little wins adding up to overall performance, and that's the second week in a row he's out-qualified Alex Albon.
Man, sorry guys, that was a pretty damn good lap, to be honest.
I think it was for Liam Lawson, who's out-qualified Isaac Hadjar and got a first notch on the board for him in qualifying head-to-heads for the year. 12th position, not a bad return. Albon 7 thousandths away from Hamilton, who didn't put his cleanest lap together, but just about scraped through. 7 thousandths ahead of Albon, who missed a little bit in that final sector. So it's 7 thousandths. You're kicking yourself as a driver, even if it looks really, really close, and you think you've done a great. There's always something that you could have done better.
Hamilton making it through along with Pierre Gasly, Carlos Sainz, Yuki Tsunoda, Charles Leclerc, the two Mercedes of Antonelli and Russell, and the two McLarens of Piastri and Norris. They will bring Max Verstappen with them in what looks to be another cracking battle for pole position in Formula One. At the end of that session, the top three, Norris, Verstappen and Piastri, separated by just 600ths of a second.
Well, we should have the top four, 1/10. A
Everybody
whole
back
10
in the
by the time
garage.
Russell put on new tyres as well. So
Putting on
there's 4
tires.
cars in this fight.
Well, not to wish this season away, but we should remember these moments of just how close Formula One is, because historically when we have a big regulation change, it sort of opens out the field. And we've been, as these regulations have matured, the last 2 years have just been exceptional in how close all these teams and drivers are able to perform.
It is a 6.1 kilometre circuit. It's a 3.8 mile, 27 turn racetrack. And we're separated by milliseconds between Lewis Hamilton and Alex Albon. That's the difference between going through and going out. And the top 4 in the World Championship not separated by much at all. Ferrari not in the fight today. At the moment, can they change that? If you're Charles Leclerc, 0.3 of a second away, Lewis Hamilton was 0.6 of a second away. You're looking at the gap to Lando Norris after that part of qualifying.
They've got too much to find, Ferrari. They'll be happy with the second row, I think. If they can scrabble one of their drivers into that podium fight again like they did last time out, then that'll probably be a pretty good effort from them. The top 4 look like the top 4, the two McLarens, Verstappen and Russell. What I love about it is this is a period in Formula One history where the driver makes the most difference. The teams have all managed to develop their cars into a similar window. Maybe McLaren have a slight advantage, but we're talking a tenth possibly. We're talking hundredths. And then you've got Verstappen and Russell on absolute top form in also very decent machinery. Red Bull, they've now got 2 drivers into Q3. Tsunoda has done a good job and is able to look like a decent backup driver to Verstappen at the moment. And Russell once again showing his consistency. And if any one of them do a perfect lap, it could be enough for pole.
Let's hear from one of the eliminated drivers speaking to us earlier on in the pens, Nico Hülkenberg.
Well, hopefully we can still hear you with that on there. But Nico, it looked so much better for you yesterday in practice. Where did it kind of get away as we headed into qualifying today?
The last run of Q1, obviously. I don't know what happened in turn 1. I got a weird lock-up, ran wide, and didn't even do the lap because I was off the track. Missed turn 2, which is strange because I don't know. I had a feeling that the fronts weren't as ready as on the previous run, so I braked a little early. Because I was wary of it, but still I didn't get the deceleration, the bite from the brakes, and yeah, I mean, one of them things, fine margins, and a detail thing gone wrong, but with our performance where we are, we're constantly up against it, we need to squeeze everything out all the time, so yeah, that's the kind of things that, happen and you find yourself in. Not optimal, but
thanks for the follow.
To take it on the chin and come again tomorrow.
Is this a track though with the walls, incidents, safety cars maybe that might offer you some chances tomorrow still to move forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need some race action, some drag, otherwise it's pretty sterile, I think static race. Overtaking incredibly hard, to follow cars in these kind of speeds is far from easy, so yeah, I think we need a bit of support.
Good luck, thank you.
Top 10, top 10,
Chris
top
Medland
10.
with the questions,
Three,
Nico
three
Hülkenberg with
coming
the
up.
answers, and he's hoping for a chaotic Saudi Arabian Grand Prix starting in P18 on the provisional grid.
I'm glad he's explained why a driver I thought might have a chance of a top 10 is out in 18th. He didn't get a final lap in Q1, and A bit of a missed opportunity for Sauber not to at least be right there in the midfield. 18th and 20th, and long way home from there.
Oscar Piastri will be looking to score another pole position. He did it last time out in Bahrain. Can he find his way through? It is such a defining first sector with the rhythm and the speed so important. You can see head-to-head, 2 apiece, heading in to the defining battle at race 5 when it comes to qualifying pace.
Is anyone else nervous, or is it just me?
DC, you've been buzzing for this session all the way through, and I love it. A 2-time Monaco Grand Prix winner getting excited by the speed required to take pole position at the Jeddah Corniche circuit.
Every generation should be better than the last, and I wasn't even the last.
Okay, track temperature has dropped down to 37 degrees. It's still very humid out there, very hot out there, 29 degrees air temperature. And you're looking at Kimi Antonelli, who's backed up his teammate again. He's made it through into the final part of qualifying, something he's done now for 4 rounds in a row after going out in Q1 on debut in Australia with a damaged floor back in Melbourne. And the memories of Melbourne have been banished for Oscar Piastri, who has resisted the pressure so far. He is our most recent pole sitter. He is our most recent race winner. Can Lando Norris change the narrative in the McLaren battle? We've got a green light at the end of the pit lane. It is time for the top 10 shootout and time to decide who qualifies on pole here in Saudi.
Such a critical moment in the Grand Prix weekend. The battle for supremacy between them 2 McLarens is crucial. They will often get the superior pit stop choice as well. The strategy can go towards the lead driver, and when you've got Russell and Verstappen just trying to get involved, just yapping at the heels of the McLarens at the moment, they have to get their own performance absolutely perfect. I love this moment in qualifying. Q3, only 10 cars, so you've got a lovely chance to get perfect field of view in front. The night session as well, which only just enhances all your senses.
Everybody on the outlap.
Lights up the tarmac in front of you. It is perfection as the car goes as quick as it possibly can for the weekend.
Yeah, totally agree. And we're still relatively young in this World Championship battle, but it's hugely important psychologically when we know, and we speak about it much more now than we ever did in the past. As you mentioned, Julian, things like carrying the assumption the team will have that wherever you qualify is where you'll run into the first corner. It then starts setting up the strategy thought for the mechanics, for everyone involved. As Lewis Hamilton makes his way out there, and he would have been studying hard the data to Charles Leclerc, the spine, the cab that you have with your teammate, to understand where are the opportunities. How do I get this race car to talk to me?
It's used tyres though for Hamilton and Leclerc at the first time of asking in Q3. It is new tyres for Norris, for Piastri, for Russell, and it will be for Verstappen as well when he leaves the pit. I wonder what Lando's thinking. He has had the pace by a fraction over Oscar so far through this weekend, including into the first couple of parts of qualifying, but only by half a tenth. And we know he's not been able to put in clean Q3 laps at the decisive moments. Now is the time for him to answer that question.
Looking for 2 attacking laps, but first of all we ride on board with Oscar Piastri, the 24-year-old from Melbourne. He is hopping all over the curves in the first sector.
A little bit too much of a hop, I'd say, over at turn 5, and it just meant he struggled to rotate the car through the right-hand side as he skipped over it.
It doesn't look a lot, DC, but if you consider the top 4 were separated by a tenth of a second, you're going to need to ace that first sector.
Yeah, well, that's not the fastest we've seen so far, and you can just hear the hesitation as one corner leads to the other. We'll see how the rest of the lap builds, but this is definitely not looking like a sort of lap that would just pump you full of confidence.
There's margin in there for Piastri. He's a couple of tenths away from what is possible in that first sector with a sweet drive. He's quick through there though, 22, maximising it later on.
And he would know that there is time to make up. George Russell has gone slower through the first sector. His radio message is to check the floor. The first run gives the confidence to attack the second run, and Piastri knows that every 100th is going to count around here. We've got a yellow flag out around the racetrack, and we've got Piastri over the line as Norris in the other McLaren finds the barrier. Lando Norris in Q3. Another moment, a defining moment, chasing pole position and finding the wall.
Norris just wrecked.
Well, that's good to read that he's okay.
It's huge. I feel it's huge for the momentum of this championship. Oscar has just not done his greatest lap. He went quicker in Q2. This was a door ajar on a weekend where Lando has been the faster McLaren, but you just feel the pressure on his shoulders, the weight on his shoulders in these Q3 laps, and it's another one that's gotten away from him. Let's have a look at it coming in towards turn 4. He used everything coming out of 2. He's got wide eyes, similar.
So early, and a minor moment with a major repercussion for the World Championship as Norris goes over the curb and into the wall.
So it's a similar moment to Oscar just running wide through 4, but the rear end of Lando's McLaren is so much more squirrely. He turns it in, he's slightly wide, jumps over that curb, but he gets the oversteer as he's going, and the car's got all sorts of lateral movement on it, which he just cannot control.
Lando, are you okay?
Yeah, all good. Idiot.
Don't worry about it.
8 times last year on pole position, the bedrock of his best ever World Championship finish. We were talking about the starts last year. It is qualifying, raising the question for Lando Norris in 2025.
Yeah.
Well, at this stage, the best they can hope for that there's not any gearbox damage, anything else on top of that. So, bit of suspension they can fix, but his starting position, as we heard from Nico Hulkenberg,
he's still going to be
difficult to overtake on this track. He does have
depends on the time
good
he's got right now,
and they can make those tires last, which was what I was just about to say. For Piastri, visibly quicker than so many others, and his attack into the final corner, and then that's when we cut to
they got to
Lando,
fix his car for tomorrow, though.
The smallest of mistakes, you pay the biggest of prices on a track like this.
It just weighs heavy on your mind when you've got this niggling down. As you say, Alex, last year it was the starts. How many times was he on pole? Couldn't keep the lead into the first corner, and then he nailed it finally. And the starts he's now got under control. Qualifying, Lando's always been an absolutely fantastic qualifier. Pound for pound, I would have said he's one of the fastest on one lap, and I still think he is. But he's just not able to execute with this McLaren this year without making plenty of small mistakes, and that was another one. It was a small mistake that just had big consequences on this punishing track.
Just want to do a bit of housekeeping. Oscar Piastri's time does stand. He got there before the red flag. A 1:27.560 does stand. We've paused the clock with 8.5 minutes to go, and there were 4 contenders who looked capable of pole position. Lando Norris, with the error, eliminates himself from that battle. Piastri versus Verstappen and Russell. Still to come, with others trying to cause an upset in the mix as well. We have seen drivers improve from 15th to 2nd here. That was Max Verstappen a couple of years ago, but it's Piastri with the time on the board and Norris with the car in the wall. And there are 3 points between the two of them in the World Championship heading in to this round.
Okay, Julian, stick us inside the mind of the racer as Oscar sits there.
Oscar's got to show out.
He feels for the team, I'm sure, but this isn't show friends, it's show business, and that's advantage Piastri.
He could be the killer now, can't he? So Lando has given Oscar really kind of an open goal. I say kind of because actually this is a massive opportunity for Max and George as well to bring themselves right back into that fight on a day where Red Bull and Mercedes are right there. But when you see your teammate, who, by the way, is the biggest rival for Oscar, let's not beat about the bush, teammate, but big rival, championship leader. Oscar wants to be the champion. He doesn't care for his teammate at the moment. He wants to stick the knife in as much as he can when Lando's down. It's a brutal sport. It's the reality. The way to do that is to be taking this pole position and put 9 cars between yourself and your teammate, or 8 cars, and that will really make this seem even worse for Lando. That's the perspective of Oscar, and it's the mistake there for Lando is it's such a small one. And if you look at that compared to Oscar, they both ran wide, but just the natural balance in the car, where Lando's rear end went light and started going, Oscar's was more planted. He's hopped over that curb, but Lando just had the rear end go light on him and was fighting it over the dustier part of the tarmac, and Oscar had the rear end settled, jumped the curb, lost a bit of time himself, and just managed to get over the line by almost nothing.
Yeah, well, sometimes the racing gods are just with you, and in terms of getting a time on the board, that clearly was the case. It was all going wrong on that entry phase, just a bit wider than you would have liked, tried to roll with it, and then on that dustier line, it would be the first time he was experiencing probably the car on that dustier line with a greater speed than at any point he's done through. And what he found out is the momentum was going to take him wide. So isn't it incredible? Isn't it almost so cruel how the smallest of mistakes, we were talking probably what, 10 centimeters or so away from where maybe slightly more from the ideal apex. The ideal apex is about 1 millimetre away from that inside wall, but you don't want to hang out there too often, do you?
Certainly not. Certainly not. I've seen drivers tap that inside wall and do what Yuki did in practice yesterday, have a bit of damage on the front track rod, and then you're not going anywhere either, and you still feel like a dingus. So it's a really tricky one to balance it out.
What do you feel like? Sorry, a new word for me.
Yeah, dingus has been committed to the broadcast. Probably a good time for us to throw to Alex Brundle.
I like it. I'm here for it. Down the back of the McLaren garage here, guys. Mirror your thoughts. A tiny little error on the apex there, and it turned into a really big deal on the exit. I'm not sure why we're surprised. We've been talking about exactly that kind of accuracy every broadcast all weekend long. A lot of activity at the back of the McLaren garages there, getting ready to receive Lando Norris back here after he's visited the media pen. Interesting though that the area of the circuit where he's actually been slightly stronger than Oscar Piastri all weekend long, and indeed it was in Q2 the area where Lando was a tiny bit better than Piastri, took a 10th out of him there and actually bled that 10th back through the rest of the lap. But people and bits moving in and out of the back of the McLaren garage here. It'll be interesting to see, though, how Lando turns his mind onto tomorrow's Grand Prix. He's going to be starting inside the top 10, and it's either going to be the moment where the two trajectories of the McLaren drivers part, or he's going to jump straight back in it, pick himself up, dust himself off, and critically for his season, try and gather that momentum back.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate that. We have cleared the McLaren away. The Drivers' Championship separated by 3 points. But don't just look at Oscar Piastri. Max Verstappen is there. George Russell is there. And Lando Norris, his car is behind the barrier. We have a minute to go before we restart this session. And there was so much talk about Q3 and performance. We talked about the walls being close. We talked about the speed of these cars, and we've had a big moment. It is worth pointing out, this is round 5 of 24 in the World Championship, but we know the importance of momentum, and when you consider that Oscar Piastri has been within a 10th of a second of the pole position time all season long, whether it be in sprint or Grand Prix qualifying, it's a major advantage towards the Australian at the moment. This is Max Verstappen.
He's all right, yeah?
I believe, yep. He's communicating he's okay, yep.
It wasn't actually the biggest of impacts for Lando, and I think his car will be safely repaired for tomorrow to start in 10th, as Alex Brundle mentioned.
Lando has hit the wall, exit turn 5.
Is he all right?
Yes, he's okay.
It's the nature of Jeddah, isn't it, where you hear any car has hit the wall. It is a fast speed part of the circuit, and all the drivers want to make sure that each other are okay.
The green light illuminates. After Lando Norris finds the barriers, we find ourselves with the concluding moments of Q3 to run, including Carlos Sainz, Pierre Gasly, the 2 Ferraris, the 2 Red Bulls and the 2 Mercedes but one McLaren, and one McLaren with the fastest time, a 1:27.560. This World Championship will run all the way to December in Abu Dhabi, but there is a big chance now for a big points differential. Piastri has run one on the board. Everyone else is heading out for run one, apart from Lando Norris.
Interesting, actually, for Lando, whether the threshold on the impact was sufficient for a trip to medical centre, or whether that isn't the case and he declares himself absolutely fine. That throws him straight into the media pen. That is the nature of this business. If there's no really good reason for you not to be put in front of the world's media, that's where he's going to find himself in the next few minutes.
The medical light wasn't triggered according to our information, so below a 18G impact, and so DC, who's been through that before, knows that it's straight off to the media pen. Can you get in your own head about qualifying, gents? Can you find yourself, so DC, you've been on pole in Monaco, the greatest street circuit of them all, but when it went to one lap qualifying, you just didn't get on with that format. Can you maybe explain to everyone at home how that feels behind the wheel?
Yeah, I got into the season, I think it was like race 3 or 4 was Imola, and I made a mistake, and I went from feeling perfectly normal about a one-lapper to suddenly next race going, don't make a mistake or you'll find yourself, you know, whatever, 12th or whatever I ended up in the grid, and you end up sort of talking yourself out of it. And as Julian will now articulate, there is no place in a race car for doubt or conversation. The only conversation is absolute belief, absolute commitment.
And especially at crunch time in qualifying, which is now. Norris has put on so many brilliant laps through this weekend. He's shown he's got the pace time and time again, but it's the Q3 moment where I can't help but think he is in his own head there, and he is overthinking it when it comes down to just those last 10 cars, really him and his teammate, and maybe Max and George in the fight as well. And he's realising he has to go and find something special, but he's already been doing that lap after lap this weekend.
It is the human element sitting at the centre of the prototype technology that makes this sport what it is. Can Max Verstappen now step forward with one McLaren gone, one McLaren on provisional pole? And that is the fastest first sector by way of a response.
Yeah, we know he's got a chance because he's already gone quicker than Piastri's benchmark time, and he did that in Q2, and we saw Oscar have his own moment at turn 5 and lose a bit of time in the first sector. So there is a door ajar for a Red Bull pole or maybe even a Mercedes pole, and this is looking neat and tidy for Max.
Yeah, if anyone's got the mental strength, it's this man here. These are all exceptional athletes, even Lando, who's clearly made that mistake today, but they operate in the very, very rare air of brilliance. And can he run just below that threshold of mistake and snatch a pole?
That's the aim for the man who has done it before around this circuit. It was an amazing effort 1 year ago. It will only be an amazing effort to take pole position around the circuit, and it's good enough by 1,000th of a second. The finest margin that we could have by putting a digit on the board. Verstappen P1 by 1 millisecond, and the form book throw it in the bin. It is the driver making the difference in Jeddah.
Piastri watching on from in the garage, and he'll know that he needs to improve on his time, but to know you're not on provisional pole before you head out for the final lap is that bit of added pressure that Max has applied. Now Max has got a hot foot back to the pits and chuck on a new set of tyres for the end of this as well. He has a chance to do that and improve on his own lap. He was absolutely maximising it coming out of that final corner.
Well, here's the thing. Best drivers in the world, anyone is welcome to have their opinion on any era, but is this the best season of qualifying we've ever seen?
It has been mesmeric stuff so far. Lando Norris in Australia, Oscar Piastri's maiden pole position in China, Max Verstappen's generational lap in Japan.
Very long trip, turn 1.
Yeah, understood. Tyres were not ready.
And by the sounds of things, with his conversation with the engineer, more to come if he can get those tyres in the window. Okay, we've seen 3 of the 4 contenders we listed for pole. George Russell is on an outlap. Max Verstappen's back to the pits.
He's got
3 minutes and a new set of soft tyres, so he's charging down the Williams to try and get back in. Sainz has done a lap on the board as well. It's going to be a racing pit stop, so they must have run fuel already for this run on the Red Bull. Proof that there's more in there, and a brand new set of softs, and off goes Max again. There's a tenth or two in hand if he wants it.
And confidence with that knowledge, and they'll have banked their preparation lap to know what he needs to do for turn 1.
Russell starts a flying lap now, and Russell has the fastest middle sector from his first lap, but unlike Piastri, he didn't quite get it in before the red flag flew.
Couple of times on the front row so far this year for George Russell. Can he get there again? Can he get there at the head of the field? That's his aim as he makes his way through the first sector of the racetrack. This would mean an awful lot if he could steal pole position away from the McLarens. Verstappen has managed to put it on provisional pole. Russell is trying to usurp it.
That was tidy enough.
Oh, it was tidy
Very
enough.
tidy.
That's a huge first sector from Russell. That's the quickest we've seen so far all weekend. At crunch time, final lap, one-shot wonder for Russell, and he's already lit up the timing screens in the middle sector on his previous lap. If he can replicate that, this is a monster lap, maximising it as well, coming out of turn 17, right up against the wall.
Nothing wrong with his prep into turn 1. It just flowed through there.
This is what he needs. He needs the improvement because Verstappen will go again with the car when it's lighter. Everyone else will have the track when it's gripped in as well. There will be a response from Piastri and Verstappen. Russell has one corner to go to rotate the Mercedes. Is he on his way to provisional pole? The driver chasing his first pole of the campaign. The driver chasing his 6th pole in Formula 1. Is fastest in the field by a 10th and a half.
Oh, wow. That was a beaut.
Next up, Oscar Piastri tries to respond. This is a car that should be the benchmark, and he's half a tenth up on George Russell with a new benchmark in the first sector.
He was all about to step forward in qualifying for the young Australian this year. He was out-qualified 20-4 by Lando Norris last year, but he's always been the lead McLaren on the grid around this circuit. He already knows that will be the case, but will it be Russell, will it be Verstappen, or will it be this man improving Sector 1? It's not an improvement in the middle sector, but he's close.
Oh, Russell's time ebbed away in the final sector. Verstappen has just put in a massive first sector, quicker than both of them and by a margin. Piastri with one more corner to go.
Yeah, eking out the last little bit of evolution of this racetrack. Not as sort of visibly committed on the entry on this particular lap as the previous.
Piastri going for his 3rd pole in Formula 1, and the final sector was fantastic for Piastri, and Verstappen is up by 500ths. Leaning on the curb as he makes his way through turn 23. Piastri beats Russell. Then it's Verstappen in 3rd. Charles Leclerc is in 4th. Antonelli 5th. Then it's Hamilton, Tsunoda, Gasly, Sainz, and Lando Norris, who found the barriers, is down in 10th position. But it's over to Max Verstappen, trying to steal away another McLaren pole. Max Verstappen
and he takes
has
it.
Done it at the last. Max Verstappen on pole position. He's stolen another one from the grasp of McLaren and beaten Oscar Piastri by 1/100th of a second after a miserable time in Bahrain. Return of the Max.
Oh my goodness, there should be 3 pole position trophies because each of those drivers took the maximum from their vehicles. Absolutely brilliant.
What a qualifying session that was, an absolute privilege to see. First of all, Russell, then he got done by Piastri, and by 1/100th of a second, Verstappen nailed it right at the end. That first sector that he put in was huge, full commitment, managed to find that time obviously in turn 1 where he struggled before, and then just sent it through the faster stuff where Lando Norris hit the wall, and Verstappen has once again pinched pole position from underneath McLaren's nose.
And actually, just picking up on that, Julian, exactly as you highlighted,
you guys,
he identified turn one things weren't ready. He banked that, he prepared his lap differently. He took the risk that he then might affect himself late on the lap, but he won it where it mattered.
Yeah, that's pole position.
Pole position for Max. Simply
Oh,
lovely.
yes! Oh my God, guys. Simply lovely, that.
Fantastic, Max. Fantastic. It worked very well, that strategy in the end there. So you nailed in 2 perfect laps. Well done, mate.
Yes, I'm very happy with that. Well done, everyone. Well done. The car really came alive in the night. Well done.
Max Verstappen fired up at the end of Formula One qualifying. We heard it in Japan, we've heard it in Jeddah, and the driver who always finds his way to the top 2 around this racetrack, never lower than second around here, will start ahead of all the others. It is Verstappen on pole for the 42nd time in Formula One, and it's another one separated by hardly anything on the stopwatch. We love the Constructors' Championship, but what a Drivers' World Championship we are witnessing in 2025, and this is only the qualifying hour.
For the second time in 2 weeks, we have 4 different cars in the top 4, and such tiny margins around this over 6-kilometre circuit. Pretty much a minute and a half, 1 minute 27.294, the outright lap that Verstappen has put in. And that 100th has given him another great shot at getting a Grand Prix win under his name in 2025. But I'll tell you what, unlike Japan, you can pass around this circuit. There are DRS zones, there are good opportunities. We're in for a cracking race tomorrow.
I need to go and have a lie down, gentlemen. This is all just too much. It is, well, you mentioned about the night lights. I used to do most of my best work in the darkness. Unfortunately, most of Formula One in my day was during the day. But what high level these athletes are operating at.
And David Coulthard's excited. You know it's going to be a quali session to enjoy, but it is just serving up masterful lap after masterful lap. Sometimes it's about delivering 98%, and then at other times it's about an absolute lap